Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, AI in iGaming, Level Up Your Customer Experience. I'm your host, Trudy Kerr, and today we will be exploring how AI is transforming customer experience, compliance, and retention in the iGaming industry. We're thrilled to have a powerhouse of speakers with us today, including Dr. JJ Gatt, CEO at EBO, Dalia Percingina, Head of RSC and Online at Stanleybet, David Muscat, Director of Financial Services at EBO, Yardena Almagor, Customer Success Manager at Mindway AI, and they're going to be sharing their insights and real-world applications of AI in customer experience. Before starting, if you've got any questions throughout the webinar, just pop them into the Q&A section and we will address them at the end of the webinar. So our first speaker is Dr. JJ Gatt, who's going to open with a keynote on how AI is powering the next generation of player experiences. You're going to be hearing about how dynamic AI models can automate customer support, adapting to player behavior, reducing churn, and improving revenue per user. All of this while staying compliant with responsible gaming standards. JJ, hi.
Hi, Trudy. Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm so excited to share a few of our learnings with the audience present today. So let's get started. Trudy, I'm going to share my screen. Do let me know the minute you see a title screen appear.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Trudy. Off I go. So welcome all to this iGaming webinar. It's really lovely to be here today with you all because this is a new era for customer experience. I mean, we all know the issues too well, but let me play them out just for a second, right? So we've got players who expect instant resolution, players who expect this to happen 24/7, right? And across seamless platforms and languages, right? And I'm sure you agree, player expectations today are sky high more than ever. So we need to provide stellar customer service, not just as an advantage, but it's become an absolute necessity today. So here's the paradox, right? Customer service needs to be world class, but it's got to do so with tighter budgets. Most of you are certainly experiencing some degree of headcount freezes in this area, right? And our agents are very commonly overwhelmed. So this means your ticket queues are growing longer, especially during peak times, and players often are just frustrated, right? Because there are simple, repetitive issues like withdrawals or game glitches, which take quite a while to resolve. And every minute that the player is spending waiting is loss in revenue, it's declined trust towards the brand and reduced loyalty. I mean, let me not even get started about the complexity of the regulatory environment, right? And what we need to do. So the traditional call center, it's dead, right? We now need to train and scale our customer service for it to be sustainable. So what's the solution, right? It's easy to think of AI as some type of, magical sprinkle dust that is there to answer all your questions and problems. But I can tell you this, it's not as simple as slapping some type of off-the-shelf chatbot onto your website. In fact, I think that's probably the worst thing you could do for your customer service rating at the minute. And certainly, it's not just about speed and increasing workforce capacity, right? So with a stricter regulatory environment, the speed of replies is not enough. I think customer service in the age of AI means four things. Firstly, how can we defend against rule violations and losing players? Secondly, how can we increase the accuracy of our responses and personalize them to each user? Thirdly, it's about keeping the human touch, right? How can we keep it empathetic? And perhaps most importantly, for most operators we work with, it's about data points. How can the customer service segment in the business capture new data points about the users so as to profile them better and then move these profiles towards making data predictions? So I'm sure you agree customer service is going to need depth, it's going to need precise timing, and it's got to have some degree of emotional awareness, right? So for me, AI in iGaming is all about, do we escalate in a smart way? Are we empathetic across languages? And can we meet regulatory environments? So what I'm going to do now, just for the next 7 minutes, is share the 7 things that we have learned and that we are truly excited about. And these are 7 new areas of AI that I'm quite sure you haven't heard about yet. So let's start with the first one. Let me speak about psychology. Let me speak about behavioral science, right? So we need to ensure that every customer interaction with the firm is guided, right? So whether you are trying to encourage adoption or whether you are guiding users through a complex task, so let's say a complex KYC routine, we are now using behavioral nudges to drive the outcome. This is really important, especially in vulnerable groups of players. So let's say those who are anxious about fraud, or maybe they're hesitant with technology. Whenever trust and clarity are essential, you need to move away from automation into psychology. And we're working with some of the best people in the world at the cutting edge of psychology science. So a company called Influence at Work, run by the very famous professor Robert Cialdini, who is author of this book you see on screen called Influence. By the way, for those of you interested in psychology, this is the best text about influencing others, and it's an important book on psychology on this subject. And so this allows us, it allows EBO to move from pure AI, where you have the whole domains of, large language models, into the domain of psychology, into the domain of influencing others towards a particular outcome. Okay, here's the second thing that we're really excited about. So in iGaming, clarity isn't optional, right? Let me say it again. Clarity of the messaging of your agents isn't optional. So we have introduced for the first time dynamic literacy assessment. So when your customer is conversing with the AI tool, we are constantly analyzing signals. What's their vocabulary? How rich is it? What's their response time? How complex are the subjects they are dealing with? And then we guess their literacy, we guess their maturity. And in real time, the AI can tailor, can customize the tone, the format, the language of each response. So if your end user needs simplified vocabulary, then that's how the answer is given. Or the other way around, if you need maybe clarification of terms around compliance or certain consumer protection obligations, that ensures that the AI we provide isn't just inclusive AI, but it reduces churn, right? And it's going to boost adoption because vulnerable players need clarity. Well, maybe I should say all end users want clarity. And that's exactly why our solution around dynamic literacy assessment allows you to personalize the correspondence, the exchange, the discussion, the conversation based on those very important signals which are often ignored. Thirdly, we are extremely proud of the work we've done in AI because we have built our conversational AI solution on our own proprietary retraining pipeline. So for those of you who are up to date in the latest technology trends, you've all heard about LLMs, about large language models. But what we have done is that on top of the largest LLM in town, which is that by Microsoft, shared also by OpenAI, we have built a retraining pipeline. So a hybrid architecture, which allows us to fuse all our industry experience in iGaming, all our industry derived data harvested over millions of curated and permissioned interactions in this industry, right? And this is a key differentiator from off the shelf AI solutions, right? Because that means that our large language model is fusing the best of two worlds, the structure and capability of the largest LLM globally by Microsoft, shared by OpenAI, and our own layer on top of that, which is all about the iGaming industry. That gets your project operational in less time with a higher degree of accuracy. The fourth thing, which we are extremely excited about, is something you certainly didn't expect me to say, but I say it. It's speech, right? So voice AI brings the automation of customer service in a way that is so natural, so inclusive, and so immediate. Yes, we have customers who are telling us we still want end users to call. So we have built a voice agent that understands intent, understands emotion, understands nuance, can handle inbound calls. Yes, not through an app, but through a free phone number. It's the same AI model we're using for our text-based interactions, but it can do it in any language and through voice. And we've seen this now reducing the operational costs well up to 60%, right? And this can really reduce the digital divide for those more mature customers of yours, perhaps aged 65 and above, who will not use a digital or text-based interface by default and want a voice interaction. This can truly be transformative. And now, let's talk about the fifth thing which excites us, agentic AI. You've all heard this new concept, right? Agentic artificial intelligence. That means that EBO is going beyond passive conversations with your end users. What we're doing is building AI that can act and not just chat, right? So agentic AI means our platform is capable of taking safe actions on behalf of the customer or on behalf of the operator. So based on a conversation, we can update records in your CRM. We can trigger alerts, for example, about vulnerable end users, or we could move to particular offers or particular payment processes which are necessary. So whether we are connecting to a CRM, whether we are connecting to Mindway, whom you'll hear from in just a minute, whether we are connecting to a KYC process, our agentic AI can not only read data from your back office world, but it can take decisions and write back into these systems. So you really can have an end-to-end orchestration of the workflows and pathways that the end users need to go through. This is really bridging the gap between dialogue and action. And it does that without compromising trust or compliance. The sixth thing that I hope you would expect me to talk about is data science, right? Is measurability. From day one, our solution is going to be fully measurable. So we have an in-house data science team, and we have engineered a platform to natively track all the end users' goals fulfillment requirements, sentiment analysis, emotion analysis, and this works with our bolt-on analytics. Yes, we're using Microsoft's Power BI to show you all of this in a dashboard, but what it really means is that our data science team is going to help your platform evolve. And this is the difference between an off-the-shelf solution and what you need today. You need software that evolves, refining workflows based on the information it receives, refining safety and compliance rules, and ensuring that the system is performing at scale, right? This is how, through data science, we turn insights from the conversations into predictions. And that is maybe one of the most important functions of AI today, the ability to look at patterns in data and create predictions which you could trust and which you could prove. And I'll say one last thing about our approach. In iGaming, what we've learned is that trust is non-negotiable. So unlike your typical large language models that are generating responses probabilistically, the conversations in a licensed iGaming environment are built by our domain experts who understand the regulatory environment, who understand your back office tokens and systems, and can build structured, goal-driven flows. Truth is, most iGaming businesses today do not have conversation design specialists that sit partly in operations and partly in AI. And because we've taken this approach, we are drastically reducing the risk of hallucinations, which are common with AI, or ambiguous replies that help no one. And this is key in a regulated environment, right? Because getting it wrong could be a huge harm to the business. So each dialogue that we develop, each workflow that we complete is fully tested, fully auditable, and fully aligned to compliance standards. So what you get isn't just automation, it's predictability, right? It's safety, it's accountability, which is built into the conversation itself. And a few months ago, we announced a huge collaboration we have going on with Microsoft. We now deploy all our AI solutions in an Azure environment, which is therefore respecting the maximum data sovereignty obligations that we have required by the different license environments our iGaming customers manage. And of course, this also means that if you are already running a Microsoft Azure environment yourself, we can deploy the solution within your own Azure tenant. I mean, your CIOs and CTOs are going to love this, right? Because it means our solution will natively inherit your information governance policies, your backup and disaster recovery procedures. And that's absolutely key. And we've also done so much work around integration. I mean, we just completed this project in the UAE for a customer called Xinity. We're now handling around 80,000 conversations per month for them. And it's a fully Zendesk environment, right? So the agents are still seeing the Zendesk agent space. The end users are still seeing the Zendesk chat component. And in between these two, the customer and the agent, there is the EBO brain that is working across all their workflows, all the languages which they deal with. And you know what? Today, we are handling 45% of all the flows within the organization without the need to escalation. I mean, it was incredible, right? The organization said, will you get this done in 12 months? We did it in 3 months. And that's drastically changing the P&L results of this organization, which moved from the cost of €3 per ticket to 50 cents per ticket. I mean, really, really incredible. So we're making an impact. We are reducing CS costs often by about 50%. We are reducing end-to-end resolution times to an average of 32 seconds. I mean, in some organizations, when we started, their average ticket resolution time was 28 minutes. The good thing is not that we're resolving them faster, is that we are freeing up the time of agents to work on what really matters. And as you could see from the logos that appear at the bottom, we have fully integrated to some of the largest CRM environments which exist out there, which means we speak nicely to the back office. And on screen, you could see some other metrics that we're proud of. So let there be change, right? We are peering into this AI future. We are confident that AI is going to change this iGaming industry. And that's why I think as leaders who have come here today in this webinar, our job is not only to think of how do we automate some of our CS tickets in 2025. No, as leaders, we need to think of where our business should be in 2030. And that journey starts now. That journey starts with taking smart AI decisions with vendors that have your back. So thank you for hearing me out. I'm going to hand over to Trudy to get on with the iWebinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JJ. That's always so interesting to hear what you have to say, and I'm really excited about these success stories. Speaking about success stories, we want to listen to a story directly from the industry, so it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Dalia Pecengina, head of RSC at Online and at Stanleybet, and she's going to share how Stanleybet's partnership with EBO has enabled the company to automate over 50% of customer conversations end to end and deliver measurable improvements in efficiency and satisfaction. Dalia, thank you so much for joining us. It's over to you.
Thank you, Trudy. Yes, our journey started with EBO in 2021 when we decided that the regular customer service, as Gigi said, it's not enough anymore for our customers. Let me share a little bit of my presentation. Okay. As I said, 2021, we decided to go with EBO because it was not, as Gigi said, it's not on the shelf product. They helped us a lot on building it on our necessities, meaning that every week, every day, we are monitoring all the conversation and we see what's to be done, and review them. But the main goals were to reduce repetitive work for the customer support agents and reducing wait time for customers. How we did that? Claire, that's our iBot chat, Claire, it's our colleague. How we did it, before all the agents were busy with chat, abandoned chats, and by rule, let's say they had to wait at least 3 minutes to declare a chat inactive. And now all this work is done by Claire. For example, Claire has patience and it's waiting for the customer to reply. And meanwhile, our agents are busy with the customers who are writing in the chat and they need information if it's passed by Claire, the chat to them. Claire helps us to rule out the risk of exposing the player data or giving the wrong information to the customer. How we do that? At the beginning, Claire, it's identifying the customer, the player who contacts us, or the agent or the shop who is contacting us by 2FA, asking an OTP and who is it to identify himself. So this is how Claire manages all the conversation. For example, before, if needed, it's giving the chat to an agent, a human agent. The user satisfaction is very high in these cases as far as our research. So we managed to reach 62% of player satisfaction of the conversation rated by the players for Claire. As you can see, it's very low, unlike in the conversation. Why? Because it's mainly because it's maybe during the night, or they didn't like the reply even if it was correct. But it's nothing very concerning. The conversation handled by Claire, as you said, it's very high also. It's 41% in the and 43% in the previous 4 months. So it's very good for us. By reducing Claire taking over all these chats is reducing our costs, as Gigi said. So this Claire, it's a tool, of course, but we integrate it like it's our colleague, and manages a high volume of chats at the same time. That's a very good thing. It's a clear vision of the back office of the players waiting, so the agents can manage if needed, or take over if needed. Reduction of repetitive interaction with players, that's key on this. And of course, lower percentage of chat abandoned. Why? Because usually when you have a queue and you have human agents, the capacity it's that you have at the moment. Instead, with Claire takes over all the chats at the same time. So no issue in here with the waiting time. Also, during some moments, some periods, or maybe it's a maintenance or disruption of the play, then every customer is coming in the chat. So for example, 100 chats and you have 10 agents, you cannot manage all of them. So you can't manage all those expectations, but Claire does. So this helps us a lot. Our advice is to review very often, weekly or bi-weekly, the conversation. Every time if you change something, of course, on your bonuses in our business, you need to update them or upgrade them, or teach Claire what the customer would actually ask, of course, and change the non-performing dialogues. And this is it from my side.
Fantastic, Dalia. Thank you very much indeed. I'm smiling, I'm grinning away because I love the name Claire. Isn't that great? It's also fascinating to see how AI is making such an impact at Stanleybet. So now, look, we want to have a closer look at the technology itself. So I'm going to invite David, and we'll be coming back to you, Dalia, just a little bit later on. But David Muscat, EBO's Financial Services Director, is going to actually walk us through a live demo of EBO's AI solution, showing how conversational AI engages with players, streamlining onboarding and enhances player engagement. David, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through it.
Thank you, Trudy, for that. So in the next couple of minutes, I will be trying to give life in a way to what Gigi and Dalia said, by showing you a demo of a virtual agent deployed at an operator and interacting with a player on 2 particular use cases. And as you will be seeing, here we have Jane, who is the AI virtual agent. It is again a name similar to Claire to give the virtual agent more presence. And Jane will be helping John, who is the player in this case. So the conversation starts off by John saying ciao, and for any of you who understand Italian, ciao is an Italian word. So what the virtual agent does is that it understands that the player is speaking in Italian. The virtual agent in that case doesn't reply in English, but replies in Italian, and it replies in the native language of the person. And this is, as we have mentioned before, a very, very powerful capability. The virtual agent can speak in more than 100 languages, and we have also some exotic languages like Farsi and simplified Chinese. So imagine a case where you have a virtual agent deployed at an operator who is serving, say, 20 countries, and the the virtual agent is managing, say, 200 customers at the same time, all speaking with the different languages. Here, the AI, in that case, the virtual agent, it is a very easy task to keep up with all the customers, with all the players at the same time using different languages. And that is obviously a big improvement and a big win for the operator. Interestingly, now John replies in English. So what does the virtual agent do? It replies in English. So the virtual agent has this ability of switching between languages and personalizing the conversation with the player as it sees best in a way. So the second point. So here what Jane is saying that she's so first of all, John is saying that he has a problem with the account, and Jane is replying in a way that it shows that it is understanding what the problem is. So I'm sorry to hear your experience. And then it seeks to understand better who the player is. As Jaja mentioned, here there is a lot at play in this few simple exchanges. There is literacy level understanding, there's understanding of human emotion, and a lot of behavioral science techniques that are going in the background. We are not obviously seeing them here, but the virtual agent is continuously understanding and assessing where the player is at, and then tailoring the conversation accordingly. Moving on, so here John is a player, and now the virtual agent is asking John, okay, John, so tell me more about your problem. What is it that you're experiencing? Is the account inactive? Perhaps you have an issue with withdrawal, you cannot log in. What is the problem? And the virtual agent will continue asking these questions to really understand what the problem with the player is in this case. And here I want to pause on a point on the messages that are being given. So the messages that you're seeing here, they are being dynamically generated by the AI, by the virtual agent. So the virtual agent is using AI to understand what the person is saying, interpreting the message, the problem or the request, and then dynamically generating a response, which means that it does not have a predefined answer. It builds it on the fly. And this is using a generative AI model where it is you all used to these models and the kinds of ChatGPTs and Copilot and these consumer-facing AI tools. But within regulated industries, these models are harder to implement because there's a tendency of hallucinating. So there's a tendency of saying something that should not be said. And as an operator who is a license holder responsible to regulator, that is obviously a no-go. So the operator has to have full control of what is being said. So what we did, as also Jaja mentioned initially, we have built our own safe model, which means that we put in guardrails to ensure that what is being said is safe. We also support other ways of sending messages. So we could say, listen, in this case, always reply with this message. And what we do is that together with the operator, we define exactly how the virtual agent has to behave. And so we in a way, we find the right balance between having human-like conversation and always respecting regulatory compliance. So moving on, so here we're now understanding that the player has an issue with the account being inactive, and as Dalia said, the virtual agent will proceed to understand who is the player now. So we understood it is a player, so who is the player? And the virtual agent is asking for two pieces of information. So the username, which is John Smith, and the fiscal code. So these are the two steps. And then, so what the virtual agent is doing in the background, it is collecting this information, speaking in technical terms to the back office of the operator. The back office could be a CRM, it could be a platform that serves games, it could be any platform that the operator uses. So the virtual agent would have been integrated with the back office. It speaks to the back office and says, listen, I have user John Smith with this username and with this fiscal code, and I need to authenticate it. And here start, in a way, thinking of this idea of agentic AI, which means that the AI is doing something on behalf of the user. So what here then, the next step is that the virtual agent is sending out a PIN to the player's phone number. The player receives the PIN and keys in the number 7568. What happens here is the virtual agent takes that PIN, goes back into the back office, confirms who the user is, confirms the status of the account, that's what the problem is, and then goes back to the player. This is a short demo, and I wanted to keep it as simple as possible without having a complex demo. But here, think of cases where the virtual agent would find a problem and solve it for the customer. I say, listen, you have problem A, B, C. I need this additional documentation, for example. So all this is the combination of AI with a deep integration to the back office makes the AI agentic, and really and truly then the sky is the limit. So what I've shown you here is a first part of the conversation. So the player has a problem, the virtual agent helps the player in any language and with full empathy and really almost speaking to a human. So that's the first part of the demo. I wanted to conclude the demo with a second part where we are seeing the player asking a different question. So here the player is asking, I'm broke and I need a bonus. And for all participants from an working at operators, this is obviously is a red flag when something like this happens, because it could be that the person is having gambling difficulties. So within this demo, what we decided to do with the operator is to involve a human agent, and we decided to do this because in these cases it might work better that a person is speaking to John in this case and walking them through also in a way how to handle this situation. So what is happening here? First, the virtual agent acknowledges the problem, speaks to the person, and then calls Sarah and says, Sarah, listen, we have a situation here. I need you to help me. And Sarah jumps in. In the background, what is happening is that the virtual agent would be automatically integrated into the help desk system. Think of a Zendesk or a Freshdesk or a Creatio, which would have been inbuilt also when we have deployed the virtual agent. Sarah gets the message, jumps on the call, on the chat, and continues working and supporting the player. So this concludes the demo, and perhaps here what I just want to conclude on is that in these conversations there's a lot going on and a lot of, in a way, goodness that is being deployed at the operator in a very short time, and immediately having a virtual agent of a very high level immediately supporting the player. Off to you, Trudy.
Thank you so much, David. I have to say thank you very much indeed for the demo, because it explains and illustrates everything beautifully. Now, just as an aside, if anybody has questions for anybody that's on this presentation today, on this webinar, please do drop your questions into the chat, and we'll make sure that they are put to the right person at the end of this webinar. But in the meantime, we're going to hear from Yardena Almagor, Customer Success Manager at Mindway AI. Hello, Yardena. So glad that you're with us. You're going to show how AI, neuroscience, and expert assessments are being combined to detect and prevent problem gambling, which is so utterly essential in creating safe and responsible iGaming environments. Yardena, can I kick off by asking, listen, from your perspective, how has the conversation around responsible and safer gambling evolved in recent years, and what What is AI? What's the role of AI now playing in that shift?
Thank you, Trudy. Well, when I think back a few years, I think responsible gaming was often treated like a tick box exercise, something we need to do for compliance. We've put in place deposit limits, timeout, self-exclusion. All of these are very useful, but very much putting the responsibility on the player rather than the operator. And I think that in the last few years, I'm glad to say that we see the conversation shifted a little bit. Regulators are asking operators to take more proactive role and not just wait for the player to be at risk or ask for help. And I think at the same time, the operators themselves have realized that protecting players isn't just about avoiding the fine. It's also about building a sustainable relationship with the player and a sustainable business. And that's exactly, I think, where AI really comes in, right? Instead of reacting when harm is already visible, AI allows us to spot early, subtle patterns in behaviors that might point to risk. And it can do this across millions of players at scale. We at Mindway, we run around 13 million accounts a month. So we really see data at scale. This is something humans just cannot manage on their own, right? So I think AI moved safer gambling from being reactive to proactive, from firefighting to early detection kind of thing.
Wow. I mean, just wow. I've been involved in iGaming since about 2018, and I have seen the conversations shift to a much more relationship-based sort of direction. And hearing how many did you just say? How many players are you dealing with a month?
We just passed 13 million accounts a month.
That is incredible. But of course, AI, it allows you to be able to do that, to combine neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and human expertise in solutions. Can you share how these three elements come together in practice to support this safer gaming?
Of course, I think I like to think of it as three pillars that support the whole system. So neuroscience will be the foundation. It tells us how the brain responds in gambling situations. It looks at impulse, loss chasing, or any distorted thinking. That's our theory, right? And then we've got AI, and that's what allows us to take those insights and scale them across millions of real accounts, picking up on those tiniest changes in behavior. And the third pillar is the human expertise, which we cannot live without, right? We have psychologists, regulators, industry experts, lived experience. All of those validates the models and make sure that the outcome actually makes sense in reality and makes sense for the operator. So when we combine all three of those, we get a system that is scientifically sound, scalable, and practical for operators in their day-to-day usage.
I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the Yardena, because AI, as you just said, is a hugely powerful tool, but you've just mentioned this empathy and judgment still matter. So how do you see the right balance between technology and human interaction? How do you see this going forward?
Oh, well, I think balance is crucial in this case, right? AI can do things humans simply can't, but it can process lots of data points, pick up subtle behavior, and flag risk at scale. The things that the ops teams around operators cannot just manage manually. And that's the foundation, right? Spotting those early patterns consistently, and no biases, of course. But the tech itself is not enough. I think when a player is showing signs of risk, the way we engage them really, really matters. And that's where empathy and judgment comes in. Human interaction provides the nuances, the emotional intelligence, the supportive tone of voice, all of these, the lived experience. And that's what makes the intervention effective rather than off-putting for the players. And I think that's why Mindway, we see ourselves as partners to the human teams. We're not here to replace them in any way. And when you look at what EBO's just presented, combining our solution with EBO's solution is a great example of how we can do this in practice. Their conversational AI can engage customers in real time, offering consistent and scalable interactions, but always with the option to escalate to a human to actually have that meaningful and deeper conversation, right? So I think combining our behavioral risk detection and with this ability of the chat is a really provides a fast and personalized experience for the customer. So I think the sweet spot is AI doing the heavy lifting and detecting and the first line of interaction, but people will bring the empathy, decision making, and create like a better customer experience.
It's so good to hear. Now, you just mentioned EBO, and JJ mentioned in his presentation right at the very beginning about looking forward for the next 5 years. So as AI adoption accelerates, as it is doing through the industry, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for AI to promote safer gambling in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
I think that the biggest opportunity is around personalization. AI means we can move away from these blanket rules and basic threshold that the one size fits all, and instead really support players based on their actual behavior. This could mean earlier intervention, more effective messaging, and better integration into the player journey. For some examples, if a player, let's say a player, we see issues with the time they spend. So we can personalize the messaging and we can actually push tools that help them manage their time rather than the generic messaging of set a time limit, deposit limit, right? But I think the biggest challenge in all of this will be trust, building trust with the players, with the operators, with the regulators. We all need to be very, very confident with the AI and making sure that it makes fair and transparent decisions. And making sure that AI is used as a tool and never replaces the human judgment. And this is where it becomes really, really tricky. And I think, well, finally, I think regulation will keep evolving. So the systems needs to be flexible enough to keep up. And that really refers to what Gigi said earlier, right? We're seeing the regulators shifting their expectations. It's no longer a question of how we monitor players. It's more of how advanced it is, how intelligent it is. And I think this is where AI is not as nice to have anymore. It becomes an expectation from the regulator. So I think it will be about protecting customers in a smarter and more personalized way. That will be my prediction.
Okay. Well, listen, I got one final question for you, Yardena, and thank you for just taking the time to explain how you see the vision forward. But do you think players themselves are aware of or value the responsible gaming tools operators behind the scenes? How can companies better communicate the efforts to build trust? Because trust is so important.
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of players don't know how much work is happening behind the scenes to keep them safe. I think they hear a lot of the noise from the media, more about how operators impose things on them rather than look at it from a safer gambling perspective. They only notice these tools when something goes wrong, unfortunately. And that's an opportunity for operators by being more transparent and framing protection as part of the overall player experience. This is how they'll build trust. It's not about saying, oh, we're watching you. It's more about we've got your back and we want you to enjoy your experience and your gambling, and it could be safe and sustainable. Players don't see the safety net, right, until they fall, but it's up to us to make sure they know it's there from the start.
It's almost a compliment if players don't know how much of an effort is going in to protect them, because obviously that means that the job is being done very, very well. Yardena, thank you so much for answering those questions. Stay with me because we're going to have a Q&A. For anyone that's joining us, please do join us through the Q&A right now by adding your questions to the chat. But I'm going to kick off because I have a question for David. David, you mentioned language. You mentioned Italian there before. Ciao. What languages can EBO's virtual agents speak? You mentioned some exotic languages, but what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so language is obviously a very interesting topic because it is very specific to a country, it's specific to a community, and I think for an AI virtual agent to be effective, it has to be able to speak in that person's language. And I think I'm also thinking of voice. So as we move on in this journey with AI adoption, it will only work as long as the virtual agents that are out there can really engage and connect with people. So languages is super, super important in all this. And so we support, as we said, more than 100 languages. So that you have the most common languages like English, French, Italian, but then we have built some specific implementations for like simplified Chinese, Farsi, and some of these less popular languages in at least in the European and the Europe and the UK, with always the aim to try and make it as more inclusive as possible and always engaging with the person in a very personalized way, in a very human way, and languages will always be on the forefront of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing the list grow more and more, even perhaps having some dialects, because again, I think it's, the language is also the identity of a country, of a person. So it's very, very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, when I was watching your presentation there, something occurred to me, and you did show how when a particular question is asked across, of course, then the chat will head off to a human. But what happens if the virtual agent can't answer a question, that there's a customer's query that it just doesn't know the answer to?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question, and occasionally it can happen. So in that case, the answer would be according to how we design the process with the operator. So once we start working with an operator, we sit down with them and design the conversations. And this approach, we do it initially, but as Dalia said, we do it every month. So we look at all the conversations, and any conversations that are not being handled well, or perhaps not being answered too well, we fine-tune them. And through this continuous fine-tuning, which is a combination of AI learning and human fine-tuning, we get to a very good level where within a couple of months the AI can handle most of the questions. When there are situations that the virtual agent cannot handle, or perhaps the virtual agent thinks that a human person can handle it better. So for example, imagine a case where there's a lot of toing and throwing, and the person is becoming frustrated. So the virtual agent in that case would be tracking what is happening. So by design, then the virtual agent would involve a human agent to handle that situation. And when this happens, most of the times the human agent would, in a way, explain that there needs to be more assessment, more understanding, manage the customer, doing the investigation, and go back. But again, I think the important thing, because all operators are different, all operators operate in different, want also to give different customer experiences, different personalities to their brands. So we go through this process to design how the virtual agent reacts, and in that way it will always reflect how the operator wishes to engage with the customer, with the player.
Fantastic. I love that idea that it's an ongoing process and ongoing learning.
Yeah, no, I think that is a very important point. I think that is also a point that is not mentioned a lot in out there when it comes to AI. So it cannot be drop shipped. AI has to be implemented well, and then fine-tuned so it works, and it works well, because otherwise it won't be that effective. It has to be similar to a person. So when you employ another person, you give them the initial training, and then there's a continuous coaching. So that is what we found is the best approach to make an AI tool effective and giving the results that we're seeing with Stanleybet and also with Xfinity.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hi, I've got a question here. Mert is saying, my question is, while sportsbook providers are engaging and promoting AI for more customized retention and engagement processes, how is Mindway AI and or EBO handling the responsible gaming measures to be viable within the regulations? like one AI agent is working on the background to increase customers' activities, but other AI agent is trying to reduce it respectively. Thank you for all the valuable information. What a great question. Who wants to answer that? Because it actually concerns both you, David, and Yardena.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Yardena. I go after.
Well, I think they don't necessarily conflict, right? This is very similar to what I said earlier. When we create a good player base and we engage with the customers constantly and not just when something happened, we can actually create a sustainable business, right? So it doesn't mean that the fact that we want to protect a player doesn't mean we don't want that player to also play, right? It should be fun. It should be, it's an entertainment industry. That's who we are and what we do. It's just a matter of how we keep it contained and something they can enjoy doing for a longer period of time and not spend everything and disappear. That's not the intent, not of us, anyone in safer gambling or the sportsbook.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what I would add to Yardena's comments is that it is also in the obligation of the sportbook, of the operator, to take care of the players, and it is an obligation that is also part of the regulations that are imposed on them. But I also think of a whole customer experience that a virtual agent would bring in a way to the table, that is taking into consideration the balance between helping players, promoting activities, but still making sure that the player is safe. So it's a one unified customer experience.
I'm going to stick with you, Yardena, and I have to say thank you, Mert, for that question, because that was a fantastic question. But Yardena, I'm going to stick with you just for a moment, because you mentioned before about this ongoing, you mentioned it several times now, about this ongoing relationship, building relationships with customers. And this is particularly important because one of the most effective ways to identify and intervene with at-risk players early, before their behavior escalates into problem gambling, because of course that's essentially what every provider wants.
Well, I think the most effective way is to look at patterns, not just one single event. A player having a long session might not mean much, but a player who suddenly changes their spending habits, start chasing losses or depositing very late at night consistently, that's where the red flags start. So once you spot these patterns, the intervention has to be timely and appropriate. A light touch nudge or pop-ups at the right moment, early, when we see early signs, generally we find it more effective than waiting until something really bad happened and we need to close an account and post some limits, do all of these. But it's not just about catching problems as they happen. Early education plays a huge role too, especially with the under 25 population. If we introduce the concept of responsible gaming and positive play, and we introduce the tools very early when they sign up, I think we can build really good habits and make sure that the players learn how to recognize risk themselves before it escalates. So I think it's the combination of continuous monitoring, of being very on time with the interventions, and building some culture of education and awareness, that will be the best way to handle this altogether.
Fantastic. And those 13 million, did you say once again, 13 million players? How amazing. I'm so glad to hear that so many things are in place to protect players in safer gambling as well. Fantastic news. I do have one last question. I can see how EBO is intervening in session to support players, but how are companies supposed to action Mindway's triggers? Are they real-time triggers, or are players profiled daily, for example? Thank you so much to Caron for that question.
Thank you. Well, it's a mix. It's a mix of two things that we do. So yes, we trigger things real time based on the operator's request. So it could be threshold of depositing over a certain amount, or a number of bets, or all sorts of different things, and we can trigger it in real time for the operator to do what they want with it. And at the same time, we also generate a daily score for every active customer. So today you'll receive a score based on your behavior yesterday. And we provide two different scores. So we provide a risk score, which is something that doesn't change very often. It doesn't change suddenly. So if you were low risk yesterday, you won't be high risk today, right? Risky behavior builds over time, but what we also give is an intensity score for that player. So they might have been low risk for this whole time, but they had a binge last night. So we'll show a spike, and we can nudge that over to the operator and say, maybe it's worth having a conversation with this customer. It's an odd behavior for them. So we do a bit of both, and operators can choose what to use and what not to use. And I think with some regulators, we have to respond almost real time. So in Holland, for example, it's 60 minutes that the operators have to respond. So it has to be real time. There's no other choice.
That is amazing. Listen, I want to say thank you to Yardena for really sharing all of that information on safer gambling. We're nearly at the end of the webinar. I can't believe this hour is nearly passed, but I'm going to pass the mic to David for some final remarks. Thank you to everybody who has dropped in some questions, and the team will get back to you personally as well. But David, for your closing remarks.
Thank you, Trudy. So as we wrap up today's session, I think it's safe saying that the iGaming world is in the midst of a powerful transformation, one driven by AI, innovation, and also regulation. And I think if I had to take three key takeaways, they would, in a way, the following would be my three key takeaways. So first of all, AI in customer support is not only increasing speed and capacity, but it is creating deeply personalized experiences. And these experiences are personalized through content, through context, emotion, timing, empathy. So it's really understanding the player and then speaking and engaging with player in a very, very personal way. Secondly, as Dalia has kindly explained, we are seeing AI working in the real world. I'm thinking of all, in a way, the AI skeptics out there, but here we are seeing real cases where AI is reducing response times, improving player satisfaction, and maintaining compliance, which is always important. And so these are not just operational wins, but they are wins that show that AI can provide return on investment, provide advantages, and work hand in hand with humans. And lastly, as Yardena has explained, there's a big leap forward in responsible gaming. And again, it is all with the interest of the player and bringing one more personalized experience. But what ties all these things together is that these are, so ours and Mindways, they are, and also Stanleybet as an operator, they're different technologies. What brings them together is that they work all together to provide one experience. They do not work in silos, but work together to provide one holistic experience end to end. So I just want to end by thanking you all for attending, and I'm really looking forward to continuing these conversations also after the webinar. Off to you, Trudy, to close it out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for that. And thank you to our other speakers, to Dr. JJ, Dalia, Yardena, and to all of us for you joining us today. We hope we leave you with some new ideas on how AI can help your business boost efficiency, reduce friction, and deliver safer, more engaging experiences for players. If you'd like to carry on the conversation, please visit EBO.ai or connect with David, EBO's Financial Services Director. That's all from us. We look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thank you.